Hello, and welcome to the Mirrored Muse podcast, a sanctuary for the soul and a spark for the revolutionary spirit, where our truth is reflected, our radiance remembered, and our spirit set free. I'm your host, Whitney Amber, and together we'll journey into the depths of what it means to awaken, embody, and expand as the muse of our own life. Through soulful storytelling, raw reflections, guided practices, and revolutionary conversations, this podcast is here to truly meet you in your own becoming. So, let's take a deep breath, soften our edges. It's time to step into the mirror. This is your invitation to rise. Spiritual sovereignty. It's the moment you stop asking, "Is this right?" and you start asking, "Is this true for me?" It's the moment you remember that wisdom doesn't live on a pedestal or outside of you. The wisdom lives in your body, in your breath, in the quiet knowing you've learned to doubt. This episode is truly an invitation back into your own inner authority, away from rigid rules, away from spiritual hierarchies, away from borrowed beliefs, and especially performative enlightenment. And really getting back into lived wisdom, discernment, embodiment, trust. No bypassing, no blind devotion, and no giving your power away dressed up as quote unquote faith. Just you, fully present and rooted and in relationship with the mystery, not being ruled by it. Hi, loves. Welcome back to the Mirrored Muse. Today's episode, it feels important. Not dramatic bulletin type important, not urgent important, but really foundational. Because spiritual sovereignty is not a trend. It's not a phase. It's not something that you achieve. It's truly a remembering, it's embodiment on a whole other level. And for many of us, it begins with unlearning. So today, we're talking about that. Today is episode 20, and it's all things spiritual sovereignty. Now, let's just get right into it. Spiritual sovereignty is this ability, it's a practice, it's the devotion to trust your own inner authority before you trust anything outside of you. So think a combination or blended concoction of your intuition, your values, your lived experience, your wisdom, your body. That is the compass. Everything else is commentary. And trust me, I love a good card pull, a soft sign from the universe, a little angel number moment, you know what I'm saying? But none of that replaces the clarity that comes from being rooted in yourself. This is not about being the most mystical or even spiritual person in the room. It's about being the person who can actually hear their life speaking to them without needing everyone else to confirm it. And I'm going to have a little Volney B moment here, okay? Because I think after the several weeks of the break with the podcast, I really had this moment where I had to come back down to earth, if you will. This is one of the most pivotal components of my integration process while being back from traveling and just everything that I had experienced last year. And so I had this moment where I had to come back down to earth and just have a real reality check. Because I think I had experienced such an intense amount of spiritual experiences that were, oh my God, hard to believe is an understatement. You know what I'm saying? And so after having those consistent experiences, I was really sitting with, the direction and moving forward with the podcast and how can I show up most authentically in this ever evolving version of myself, especially this version of me, stepping into 2026. And so I really had to sit with not just my messaging because that sounds very brandy, but just like, how do I want to show up, And how can I be more honest? Not that I've not been honest, but how can I really use language as an art form to tell a story, but in a way that bridges the spiritual and the down to earth? How can I bring spirituality down to earth, right? And exist in this bridge between the two worlds. So, all that to say, guys, I really value spirituality. I'm such a spiritual person. But I am also I am very hip hop with my healing. You know what I'm saying? I'm very champagne jello shot kind of vibe, which was best described by my best friend. Like, my closest people will tell you I can do both, and I like to two-step in and out and both and at the same time. So that's the vibe that we're carrying into this year. So if you feel me, I'm sending you love and just thank you for being here. Now, what is spiritual sovereignty? It's self-trust, it's embodiment, it's discernment, it's clarity, it's emotional responsibility. It's knowing the difference between intuition and anxiety, between alignment and avoidance, between a genuine inner yes and a fear disguised as a maybe. It's the ability to basically sit with your own knowing without outsourcing it to the group chat, a tarot spread, and I don't know, should I text him moment. It's remembering that your intuition does not come from panic. It comes from presence. And you don't have to earn your connection to a higher power, source, or God. You don't have to prove your worth to hear truth. You don't need a guru. And the only permission you need is from yourself. You just need to stay connected to yourself. And so, what spiritual sovereignty is not, I can tell you, it's not bypassing your humanity. And now, I really want to clarify this because we are entering this phase, I think, in our world collectively where spirituality is on the rise, and that is very beautiful. But spirituality without connection, without discernment, that gets tricky. And that's what I personally want to avoid. So, spiritual sovereignty is not bypassing our humanity. I just need to say that one more time. It's not pretending that you're above your feelings. It's not ignoring red flags because everything is a lesson. It's not blaming your attachment wounds on Mercury retrograde. It's not chasing signs instead of taking responsibility. It's not giving your power away to an influencer who has a ring light and a microphone. And it's definitely not outsourcing your fate to whether or not the 555 you saw in the interstate meant call him back. And listen, I've been there, guys. I have been there, right? I really have, and I will own that till the end. It's just not that deep. And also, like, it is. It's both and. Because spiritual sovereignty is honest, it's embodied, it's choice, it's presence, it's accountability. It's the kind of spirituality that actually makes your life better, not more confusing or sacrificial. And now here's where we're going to dive into some real talk because the nervous system is key. That psychology layer really is a key component. Because you cannot access your intuition when your nervous system thinks you're in danger. Your body will always tell the truth, but it will also always prioritize survival. And if your intuition is coming from a place of panic, hypervigilance, or fear of abandonment, it's not intuition. That's a pattern. So spiritual sovereignty requires you to build internal safety. Safety to feel, safety to pause, safety to say no, safety to trust the first whisper instead of waiting for the 10th sign, safety to not grip for control, safety to go slow when your conditioning and society really press this rushing pace. If your body doesn't feel safe, your intuition has to act as a neon sign. When your body does feel safe, it only has to whisper, and that whisper becomes unmistakable, undeniable. And I'll tell you a truth about myself. You know, there have been seasons, low key, several years, where I gave my spiritual power away because I was afraid of being wrong. These seasons where I wanted someone else, be it a lover, a mentor, a guru, or healer. And you know me, guys, I love a good card pull. I wanted these things. I looked to these things to tell me the thing I already knew, because accepting it meant something in my life had to change, and that might have felt scary or intimidating. There were moments where my intuition was so loud, but I didn't feel ready to honor it. So I diluted it, doubted it, completely just suppressed and ignored it, or tried to negotiate with it. These are the moments that got me into the scariest and trickiest situations of my life. I've prayed for answers while ignoring the ones literally sitting in my chest. I've asked for clarity when my body had already given me the truth. I've stayed too long. I held on too tightly, given the benefit of the doubt when I should have given myself the benefit of discernment. Like, I'm talking moments where my whole body was clearly communicating with and to me, and I straight up ignored it in the name of that 0.001% chance that I might get it wrong, or my intuition, might have gotten it wrong, which isn't a thing, by the way. And I've also had moments where I trusted my intuition instantly. No back and forth, no spiraling, no crowdsourcing opinions, and no explanation. And those decisions became the most aligned and beautiful pivots of my life, full stop, for real. And just to name a few of these, obviously last year traveling across several countries solo, leaving the jobs, leaving a marriage, choosing myself, releasing connections and material possessions, creating the Mirrored Muse. So spiritual sovereignty didn't arrive in one light bulb moment. It arrived in 1,000 tiny ones over the course of 34 years. 1,000 micro yeses and 1,000 micro nos. 1,000 gut feelings I finally stopped abandoning. Oh, guys, this topic is so near and dear to my heart, and honestly has been such a game changer for how I've been able to successfully navigate, to this day, an immense amount of change and transition in my life. So now let's take this a layer deeper in my own lived experience. And please, please, please know and hear me when I say, I am not here to tell you what to believe. I am only here to share how I learned to trust myself and the universe, God's source, again. Because I was raised Christian, and I want to say this very clearly and respectfully. There were beautiful things about that foundation: community, devotion, a sense of meaning. But there was also something subtle happening underneath it all, and that I felt from a very young age, like I'm talking 9 or 10 years old. I learned very early that authority lived outside of me, that truth was something already written and that we were given, that questioning meant doubt, and doubt meant you were doing something wrong. I learned how to listen and absorb, but not how to discern. And for a long time, I didn't realize how disconnected I was from my own intuition because it was masked as quote unquote faith. What I later came to understand was this: I wasn't lacking belief, I was lacking permission, permission to trust my own inner experience. So spiritual sovereignty didn't begin for me as rebellion. It began as honesty. I'm talking moments where I'm literally asking myself, what actually feels true in my body? What feels alive? What feels constricting? What feels inherited rather than chosen? Asking these questions changed everything. And it's a part of what I consider one of the best first steps for stepping into spiritual sovereignty. And that is taking personal inventory, not in a judgmental or shameful way, not in a dramatic, burn it all down to the ground kind of way, but gently and graciously, curiously, and most important, honestly. It's looking at your beliefs and asking, now, did I choose this? Does this make sense? Does this resonate and feel true for me? Or did I absorb this from someone else? Because beliefs come from everywhere: family systems, religious institutions, culture, gender expectations, trauma responses, survival strategies, and many of them were adopted before we even had language, choice, or consent. Spiritual sovereignty invites you to sort through all of this, not reject it. You're not required to abandon everything, but you are invited to discern. And discernment sounds like, this resonates. Or maybe it sounds like this no longer fits. Maybe it sounds like this once protected me, but now it limits me. And discernment can also sound like this feels true, but only when it's embodied, not enforced. This process is deeply compassionate. It's not a once and done, it's ongoing. For many of us, questioning was framed as disobedience, but I want to offer a reframe here. Because discernment is not rebellion, it's spiritual maturity. Blind belief is easy, earned trust, not so much. Spiritual sovereignty doesn't mean I know everything. It means I'm willing to stay in relationship with trust and truth as it evolves. It means you can hold humility and self-trust at the same time. You don't outsource your authority, but you also don't isolate yourself from wisdom. That balance is so key. Now, I think it is so significantly important, if that's even a phrase, to mention here that spiritual sovereignty can come with grief. That has definitely been a part of my journey and experience. And this is grief for certainty. This is grief for community that you may outgrow. This is grief for versions of yourself that felt safer when answers were handed to you. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means you're really being honest. Sovereignty isn't about standing alone forever. It's about standing with yourself first. From that place, connection becomes cleaner. It becomes clearer. And faith becomes lived. Spirituality becomes relational, not performative. And one of the biggest shifts for me was realizing that intuition doesn't speak in full sentences, right? You don't get the full picture from intuition because it speaks in sensation, in contraction, in expansion, in calm or pressure, in clarity or urgency. Religion taught me to distrust my body. Spiritual sovereignty taught me to listen to it and ask questions, be curious about what's showing up and when and how it's showing up. Your body is not an obstacle or a problem to overcome. It's a tremendous source of intelligence. Embodiment is the practice of staying present long enough to hear yourself. And intuition, real intuition, it does not shout, it doesn't scream, it's not that vibe. It doesn't rush, it doesn't threaten. it truly feels grounded, even when the choice is hard. Spiritual sovereignty is learning the difference between intuition and anxiety, guidance and impulse, resonance and obligation. It's ultimately the concept of being the ruler of your own inner world, your thoughts, energy, and choices by reclaiming personal power, trusting inner guidance, and not seeking external validation anymore. It means taking charge of your spiritual path, understanding your inherent connection to the divine, and acting from a place of self mastery, compassion, clarity, independent of societal pressures or others' opinions. It's about recognizing your divine essence and taking responsibility for your own being. And that takes patience. Please hear me. That takes an immense amount of patience. It also takes practice. It takes slowing down. So I want to speak to you from that place, the place that lives underneath all the noise. Because here's the truth I want you to hear. Your intuition is not fragile, and your connection to God's source, the universe, is not a thin thread. Your knowing is not woo. It's not delusion, and it's not naive. It is truly ancient wisdom. It is precise, it is steady, it is yours. And you are allowed to trust the way truth feels in your bones, in your body. You are allowed to trust the life inside you just as much as the life around you. You're allowed to hear yourself without explaining it to people who were never meant to understand. And you are allowed to walk away from anything that makes you doubt the intelligence of your own spirit. And so let's just ground this into real life, because sovereignty, it's not just a vibe. It is a practice. And so here's what it looks like maybe in the day-to-day, okay? It's maybe, listen for the first whisper and not the 10th sign. Regulating your nervous system before making decisions. Clarity comes from calm, not chaos. Trust micro decisions. The tiny yeses rebuild self-trust faster than big leaps. Use the tools, tarot, astrology, signs, as mirrors, not dictators. Stop spiritual outsourcing. No one else's certainty is more real than your truth. I want to say that louder for those of us in the back seat of the car right now, okay? Stop spiritual outsourcing. No one's certainty is more real than your truth, than your lived experience, than your intuition. And also maybe ask, is this my intuition or my fear? Your body will tell you. Intuition feels neutral and quiet. Fear feels loud, urgent, gripping. And let your life show you. You don't have to force clarity. Aligned things, they just confirm themselves. This is sovereignty in motion. And I don't think spiritual sovereignty is just personal anymore. I think it's becoming a collective necessity. We are living in a time where technology is obviously accelerating faster than our nervous systems were designed to process. And here's the thing. Technology doesn't create disconnection. It amplifies whatever hasn't been integrated. So the algorithms, they amplify emotion. The platforms, they amplify identity. The metrics amplify comparison. All of which are very masculine in nature and in structure. So without sovereignty, it becomes very easy to outsource your worth, your truth, your timing, your sense of meaning. Spiritual sovereignty becomes the inner filter. Not everything that's optimized is aligned. Not everything that's trending is truth. And discernment really is the new literacy. Being able to pause, to feel, to question, to choose consciously, Spiritual sovereignty is not anti-technology, it's just pro-human. It allows us to engage with innovation without losing ourselves to it. And when individuals are sovereign, they don't need to dominate. They don't need to convert. They don't need to be right. They don't need this power over, because the power is within. That's how harmony becomes possible. And at its core, this of course directly impacts creativity too, because spiritual sovereignty is trusting your inner signal. Creativity is expressing that signal into form. So trusting the flow and what is trying to come through you. When sovereignty is compromised, creativity becomes performative again. Trend-driven, approval-seeking, productive but disconnected, good but not alive. When sovereignty is embodied, that's when creativity becomes natural, honest, intuitive, felt, less explainable, more resonant. A form of listening, not trying to force some kind of outcome. And since you know I can never skip the love chapter, okay? Spiritual sovereignty inside relationships is a whole thing. It's not projecting divinity onto a partner. It's not giving someone else the role of spiritual mirror when you don't need a mirror. You need boundaries. It's not losing yourself in chemistry and calling it destiny. The right partner won't ask you to abandon your intuition. They will truly admire it. They'll meet you where your truth lives, and they'll trust the God, Goddess, universal love in you as much as you trust the God, Goddess, universal love in them. So, as we close, I invite you to just take a deep breath with me, a breath into your body, into your truth, your center, and just let this land. You were born with an inner compass. You were born with a connection to the divine. You were born with a knowing that has never been wrong about you. You are not here to be spiritually impressionable. You are here to be spiritually sovereign. May you trust the sound of your own knowing. May you stay rooted in the wisdom that has always been yours. May you remember that the clearest voice you will ever hear is the one already living inside you. And may your life from this moment forward rise to meet the truth you finally stopped doubting. And hey, on the off days, may you sing at the top of your lungs and shake that ass in the mirror, because sometimes that is just as spiritual. Sending you so much love, liberation, and an amazing week. Thank you so much for trusting me with your time today, for joining this conversation moment, this mirror and movement of remembering. Feel free to keep this conversation going in the comments, and if this episode moved or sparked something within you, I'd be so honored and jazzed if you'd subscribe to the podcast, share it, leave a review, or maybe just invite a friend into the conversation. You can also join our Radiant community on Instagram at the Mirrored Muse, where you'll find more reflections, resources, announcements, and events. So be sure to give us a follow to stay in the know. And until next time, stay wild, stay soft, and never forget, you are the Muse.